Greetings, guys. What's going on? About time I made another occult video, so here we are. I wanted to talk a little bit about how the science community, the rationalist community, has been kind of diluting itself. A lot of people in the community, the atheist community, I guess, is part of it. They claim themselves to be realists, rationalists, and they dispel any idea, any whatsoever idea of faith or religion. Now, I am not a component of religion. Organized religion always ends up being corrupt. That's just how that shit works. But I am more so a proponent of pagan ideals or pagan studies, deep metaphysical insights into like the Bible. Quran's just a bit garbage, regardless. But in terms of the Bible, it's not all. The literalists have literally only been around for 50 years. The literalists have only been around for literally, or maybe 200 years. I guess it started with the Protestants. The Protestants were really the first ones to start taking it literally. Before that, I don't think anyone who considered themselves a Christian actually took the Bible literally. Most people probably didn't even consider that Jesus was a real person. Maybe they did, but maybe they thought the prophet was real. But the actual other stories like Noah and the Ark, David and Goliath and whatnot, they probably thought those were just more, they're just ideals. They're things you can study, look at, and kind of gain a sense of ethics from, a lesson. There's lessons to be learned, essentially, is how it is. That's how people of the past told their stories, was through exaggerated events. Like, look at Greek literature or Roman literature. They exaggerate a lot of things just to kind of make a point or give an idea of how or at least that's how they express their philosophical ideas of the time. And the Bible really is that. The Bible in Spanish is biblioteca, the Bible is the Bible, but in Spanish, biblioteca means library, so you can kind of get that from their ancient Latin roots. Bible is just a big word for library. So that's all it was at the time. It was just a collection of stories from around the region, kind of giving a good insight to how people felt at the time, and how people were giving themselves a sense of self, a sense of individuality. They were gaining consciousness. With the Adam and Eve story, they were actually literally opening their eyes, so to speak. More or less, I believe more so is kind of like the whole third eye sort of thing. So, but what a lot of people I see today, especially in the atheist community, they're just as bad as the literalists. They think that the Bible is meant to be taken literally, and they criticize those who do, which they should. People who take the Bible literally, they're usually a bit daft and were raised that way or something, and it's just incredibly unlikely that it was actually any of that shit was actually true, and there's more so lessons to be gained from it. So the atheists, but they don't even consider that portion of the argument. They only consider, no, it's wrong, none of it happened, therefore all of it is exempt and false. And it's like, well, you're doing it a huge disservice. And they like to bring up the Old Testament a lot, and how there's a lot of brutalism in the Old Testament, but yet there's also, counter to that, a lot of hope, I guess, God worship in that sense. And like, oh, God is all seeing, God is all good, and then it's like, oh, well, God sends down a bear to maul some children. All of that happens in the Old Testament. And they look at that and they're like, oh, nope, too many contradictions, we're out, we can't handle this, we're realists. And I think they're really selling themselves short, because when you close yourself to ideas like that, you're not going to get any of the insights that the original authors probably meant. These people weren't, when you read the Bible and look at it, these people had to have been incredibly intelligent, at least the ones writing it. And they probably didn't think it would ever be a religion or anything like that. They probably just thought it'd just be a nice philosophical book or a collection of books, so to speak, because there's a lot of different stories and handwritings and styles throughout the Bible, so you can kind of tell through the different styles how many authors there were, or at least get an estimate. I don't know what that estimate is, but I'm sure you could look it up. So what they do is they sell themselves short to these ideas, and they don't even open themselves up to it. They close it off. And what happens when you're not open to ideas like this, you're not open to new insights, you're closing yourselves, you're boxing yourselves in. That's what they think the Christians are doing, but they are doing exactly what they are criticizing the Christians for, the fundamentalists. They are boxing themselves in without actually being open to the ideas. Now, I know not everyone is like that, but there are quite a few people like that, especially in today's society. People are a lot more nihilistic. They're not very hopeful for the world. They think everything is doom and gloom, and they see that in themselves. And when you think everything's doom and gloom, everything will look and tend to be doom and gloom. But for you, it's how you perceive the world. The world will be how you perceive it, to extents. Not no, I can't just be like, oh, I wish the world is perfect and lovely, but no matter how much I tell myself that, that's not exactly true. It is both perfect and it is both unperfect. It is chaos and order all in one. And that's kind of, I think, what the Old Testament stands for. Is the world isn't going to be all roses and gardens. Well, sometimes it may be. It is also going to throw tidal waves at you. It's going to throw an ocean at you. It's going to flood you. It's going to fuck you up every now and then. It's going to make sure it's going to make sure you stay level. You can't get your head too high in the clouds, or the earth's going to drag you back down and throw you in hell. I think that's more so what the Old Testament is talking about, and I think a lot of realists and rationalists, trying to claim themselves to be realists, fail to actually understand that point. They only see the doom and gloom side. Typically, they rarely see anything good. They're all for, even, this is a weird thing I see a lot of these nihilistic individuals who are going through their own eternal existential crisis or something, want to live forever. A lot of them are, transhumanism? Transhumanism, is that the right one? Or like, kind of like implementing like AI components into our brains, or bionics and shit. Or even a lot of just genetic cloning to make us live forever. Now, I'm not for living forever. No one's going to live forever. We're all going to die eventually. But a problem I could see with living forever is that in the short term, if I say the average age is 100 years old. I know it's probably not, it's probably like 80 or 70, but we'll just say the average human lives to 100 years old, keeps it simple. Now, if you live to 100 years old, you, at 10 years old, is going to have a lot different perception of time than the 100-year-old yourself. So you, at 10 years old, values 5 years, which is half your life at that point, a lot more than a 100-year-old would value 5 years, because that's a 20th of their life, you know? So I can already tell just by being like 20 years old, even just me at 10 years old, time seemed to creep by. But the older you get, it increases exponentially. And it's fucking crazy. The days just fly by now. I can only imagine what it's going to be like in another 20 years. Now you can center yourself and kind of slow it down and be more observational, but regardless, time is going to fly by you and you aren't going to realize it. The present continues to drive no matter what you think you can do. It only gets faster the older you get. So if you want to live forever, say you make yourself live to 500 years old, what the hell is it going to be like when you're 400? Days are going to mean nothing. You're going to slowly, the older you get, the less and less value each day has. Or at least the further, because unless, of course, you're getting older and closer to death, then the value of the days might increase because you have less of them. But if you can just keep making yourself live longer and longer and longer and longer, the days are going to become less and less meaningful because you aren't going to see the end. Everything to you is going to be continuous. You're going to expect death less and less, and you're going to just get used to being alive. Because, like, I've only been alive for 20 years. Someone who's been alive 50 years. That's nothing. That's a blink of the eye in the whole grand scheme of things. So if we want to live longer and longer and longer, we're going to slowly lose our humanity. Now, I'm not against increasing the lifespan, maybe to a couple 100 years old. That sounds pretty reasonable to me. But at some point, we got to die. We can't just keep going on. You're going to... Then there's a whole memory issue. You know, our brains can only literally handle about 100 years of memory. We're going to have to install, like, hard drives on the outsides of our head, or, like, helmets or some shit, or, like... I don't know, maybe we'll be able to upload old memories into something to kind of store them in a flash drive so you can put more in, you know? I don't know. I don't exactly know how that shit's going to work, but the days are getting closer and closer to when that becomes more of a reality. So, yeah, I guess that was just kind of a rant on realism, rationalism. I could go on, but I gotta get back to work. So, anyway, that's all for now. If you like the video, comment, tell me what you think, leave a thumbs up, subscribe. Anyway, that's all. Peace.